Now I can talk, right? Now I can talk. Now I'm audible. Now I'm part of Audible. Now I can talk, right? Now I can talk. Now I'm yeah. Now, okay, now I'm part of Audible. Yeah. So I actually do need that. I thought I didn't. I thought that was actually fake and woke, but I did need that actually on. I thought I could just have my there's a thing called mic. You know, mic, mic. Called Mike. So I was doing that, but I guess that's not going to be the case. I guess that's just not how it works. I guess that's just like wrong. I guess. I don't understand. I do. I don't. No, I really don't, guys. I really don't get it. None of it makes sense to me. Nothing makes sense to me. Oh, I have. I didn't realize I had him on screen. I had my nemesis on screen. I was freaking frightened. I was so scared. All right, let me do something. I'm dying. Cries. Dies. No more reading. No more. No more. No more. No more. Yeah, I was at work. Otherwise, I would have streamed earlier too. Yeah. So no. So no. I'm sorry to say, no research today. No research. Also, I could make this better, and I could just get rid of this. Get rid of, like, this stuff. But I'm not going to, because I hate you all. I've decided I hate you. I don't like you. Every one of you. I despise you. That's a. I'll probably do it. I'll probably end up doing it later. I'm planning on doing a lot today. Uh, if they don't seem to schedule me for tomorrow, because I talked to the people, I'm not scheduled for this week for work. I got called into work today. But tomorrow we're gonna be doing some stuff. We're gonna be doing some more stuff. But today, for now, we're gonna be finishing off chapter 1. Um, I might name the stream "Finishing Off Chapter 1." Um, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm gonna keep it as this name because this is where we start. I think I'm gonna name our streams wherever we're starting at. Wherever we're starting at instead of that. And that makes it easier for me. I think that sounds better. And that way I can go in and I can like manage it better, but yeah. Yeah. And then after this I'm gonna make dinner. And I'm hoping we only go for about 2 hours. Because that gives me plenty of time to make dinner. But we might go a bit slow. It might take about 2 hours. A little more than 2 hours. I'm actually not gonna do that. I'm actually you know what? You know what? I will. I will. I'm gonna fix it right now. I'm gonna frickin' fix it. Transform. Edit transform. Crop. Top. Okay, I'm gonna have a crop top. Oh, I didn't fix it entirely. Transform. Edit transform. I know I should have done this before. Frickin' I know I should have done this before stream, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to. So you're gonna freaking have to deal with it. You're gonna have to freaking deal with me. Um, okay. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. You can see everything I can see on screen, right? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Okay, good. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure before I got into anything, before we started. Um, yeah. Let me get the activity feed up. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do. Okay, and now I can see when you guys, if any of you donate to me, and I don't have to worry. Okay. Okay. Ugh. Let's start. Let us start. Now that we got all that bullshit out of the way, we can start. We can continue. Um. Wait a second. I actually wonder something. Hold on, sorry. I'm gonna mess with shit some more. Okay, okay. Move this up. Move this up. Move this up. Move this up. Move that up. Move that up. Move. Okay, well. That's actually, oh, that's actually fine. That's how the other one is. And right there. Now, we can actually, if I wanted to, it seems that I can actually add something to the bottom of the screen. If I wanted to. And it would have space. How does it look full screened? Yeah, there is even full screen. There's still a little bit of space. I'm going to work on something later today or tomorrow. So there's something, so when you guys have it full screen, there's not just that fucking empty space at the bottom. And that's a good amount of space. That's a decent amount of space. I can do something with that. And so I will. And so I will. Alrighty. Let us get into this finally. I'm finally fucking starting. After like a million, billion, gazillion, trillion years. AKA, it's been 10 minutes. Holy fucking shit. I need to stop yapping. And start yapping about the book. The Fragile Aid of Comparative Anthropology. At least that means, I guess, Pippa probably is back from dinner. So, since I'm fucking yapping for almost 10 minutes now. The Fragile Aid of Comparative Anthropology. Cough, I'm dying. Political ecology has finally taken the drama out of the perennial conflict between nature and the social order. If the lesson political ecology has to teach is not obvious, This is not, as its theoreticians still sometimes believe, because political ecology has invented exotic new forms of fusion or harmony or love between man and nature, but because it has definitively secularized the dual political question, the dual conflict of loyalty between the power of nature and the power of society. We have no idea at all what things themselves would look like if they had not always been engaged in the battle of naturalization. What would the entities we have called non-humans look like if they were not wearing the uniform of matters of fact, marching in step in the conquest of subjectivities? What would humans look like if they no longer wore the uniform of partisans, bravely resisting the tyranny of objectivity? We are going to attempt to redraw the new institutions of democracy in the remainder of this work. From here on, we need to have access to the multiplicity of associations of humans and non-humans that the collective is precisely charged with collecting. In the absence of conceptual institutions or forms of life that could serve as alternatives to the modern constitution, we run the risk of remaining engaged in spite of ourselves in wars between realism and social constructivism that do not concern us in the least, forgetting in the process the entire novelty of the political ecology that we were seeking to deploy. Sorry, I wanted to explain this. I wanted to start out with an explanation. Get my brain working, get my brain going. I'm not sure if right now he's saying that that all that political ecologist is that wait sorry yeah political ecology. I'm not sure if he's saying that all political ecology has done was simply secularize the question between man versus nature, or if instead um um they have taken the step he is talking about. um I think it's the first one, or at least some version of the first one, because he's saying, hmm, maybe we'll see. Um, because what he's talking about here is redrawing the lines. And so we'll see. Fortunately, the anthropology of non-Western cultures is generous enough to offer us an alternative. To understand this offer, alas, we must detour by way of another seeming paradox and disappoint those who imagine that other cultures will have a richer vision of nature than our own Western version. It is impossible to blame those who share such illusions. Countless words have been written ridiculing the miserable whites who are guilty of wanting to master, mistreat, dominate, possess, reject, violate, and rape nature. No book of theoretical ecology fails to shame them by contrasting the wretched objectivity of Westerners with the timeless wisdom of savages, who for their part are said to respect nature, live in harmony with her, and plumb her most intimate secrets, fusing their souls with those of things, speaking with animals, marrying plants, engaging in discussions on equal footing with the planets. Let's see what this leads to. 259, I think. Sorry, I need to go back. I completely forgot. Wait. We're on 32. Sorry. No, we were on 42. I was right. I thought we were on 42, but I was wrong. Okay, we're on 43 actually. Okay, so 50. 259. It's 50. C. Rothberg and Uvanis, 1999, 36, pages 36 to 51. Will the real Chief Seattle please speak up? The story of one of the frauds through its an anthropological document about the Indian Chief Seattle concerning the respect owed to Mother Earth was invented out of the whole cloth. This essential of deep ecology was the invention of a Yankee preacher. That's fucking interesting. Hold on, wait. I might actually have to read this. A lot of this shit seems interesting. Let's actually look at Rothenberg real quick. So it's 1999. Okay, Rothenberg and Uvalis, The New Earth Reader, The Best of Terra Nova. And I assume it's an essay in there that he ends up talking about. Okay, so I'm going to put this in side chat because I'm going to check this out. I'm just going to check this out later, is basically what it is. Is basically what I'm going to do, because that actually seems... I'm just, it's just fucking interesting. All this, I love all of Latour's sources. All of Latour's citations are like amazing. They're like all amazing. Like even the ones he's like kind of shitting on a little bit. Even those are pretty good too. It seems. Um. So yeah. Those feathered savages, children of Mother Earth, how nice it would be to be like them. Witnessing their weddings with nature, how puny one feels to be nothing but an engineer, a researcher, a white, a modern, incapable of rediscovering the lost paradise, that Eden toward which deep ecology would like to redirect our steps. Now, if comparative anthropology offers a helping hand to political ecology, it is once again for the reason that is precisely the opposite of the one advanced by popular ecology. Non-Western cultures have never been interested in nature. They have never adopted it as a category. They have never found a use for it. We will go back to 259. I see a historical turning point in the recent creation of a chair at the Collège de France, successor to Levi Strauss's chair for Anthropology of Nature, since that discipline had always dealt with cultures. See Philippe Descola, 2001. Descola seems very interesting. I don't know if anyone has ever read him. Felipe? I assume it's like Felipe, maybe. Descola. But if anyone's read him, I'd be very interested to hear your opinions. Descola seems to come up quite a bit in Latour. So very interested in that. Know a lot about Latour, don't know much about his sources, is kind of my big issue. I need to take time to delve into his citations more, because his citations seem phenomenal, amazing, perfect, and I would probably get a lot from it. Just generally. There's just so much. On the contrary, Westerners were the ones who turned nature into a big deal, an immense political diorama, a formidable moral gigantomachy. Refers to the epic mythological war in Greek mythology between the Olympians led by Zeus and the giants who were the offspring of Gaia. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Wag's probably typing about it right now. And who constantly brought nature into the definition of their social order. Unfortunately, the theoreticians of ecology make no more use of anthropology than of the sociology of the sciences. Deep ecology means shallow anthropology. And we go back to the citations to look at 52. 52. De Scola, 1996. I assume this means page 97. If there is something more astonishing than the almost total absences of references to sociology or the social history of the sciences in the works of the philosophy of ecology, it is the even greater absence of comparative anthropology. That is very sad. For those of you who don't know, before Latour wrote Lab Life, he spent a few years sort of as an anthropologist. He wasn't really, he was probably something like an assistant or something. He probably took a very minor role. I should look into it more. But Latour, he worked in the Ivory Coast, I think it was. And I think that was where he was. It was he worked with what was it? Let me just look up Bruno Latour and I'll be able to find it on his Wikipedia page. He worked with Orstom. Yeah. And that's where he got his start. And then he came back, I assume, and he was like, "Hey, I want a fucking grant to go to America and write about, a lab." And that's kind of the beginning of all of this. But I think his time doing that, like, field work, even if it was like minor, probably had massive effects on him, I have to assume. Calling Latour just a philosopher is always the greatest shame. Latour is a philosopher. This is like, I think that's kind of obvious, but above all else, he is a sociologist and an anthropologist. And yeah, he his philosophy is always in service of those two things. It's always in doing better sociology or better anthropology. If comparative anthropology is indispensable, it is thus not because it offers a reservoir of exoticism thanks to which whites may succeed in exiting from their uniquely secular and material conception of the object of nature, but on the contrary, because it makes it possible to extricate Westerners from the exoticism they have imposed on themselves, and by projection on others, by thrusting themselves into the impossible imbroglio of an entirely politicized nature. We do not mean to suggest that non-Western cultures correspond point for point to the political ecology whose protocol we propose to draw up. On the contrary, as we shall see in Chapter 4, all the institutions of the collective remain contemporary inventions, unprecedented in history. We mean only that the other cultures, to keep on using a quite ill-conceived terms, precisely because they have never lived in nature, have preserved the conceptual institutions, the reflexes and routines that we Westerners need in order to rid ourselves of the intoxicating idea of nature. If we learn the lesson of comparative anthropology, these cultures offer us indispensable alternatives to the nature-politics opposition, and proposing ways of collecting associations of humans and non-humans using a single collective clearly identified as political. More accurately, they refuse to use only two collectors, just one of which, the social world, would be seen as political, while the other, nature, would remain outside of power, outside of public speech, outside institutions, outside of humanity, outside politics. If they do not form the lovely unities imposed on them by exoticism, at least the other cultures are not blind in one eye. Oh, he's just saying um that because we separate out nature um and in politics, it leaves us permanently blind because we view these things as like kind of like completely distinct things instead of, as the Torah calls them, kind of uh um association. It's about associations for the Torah. Um, instead of talking about the associations between them, and yeah, and they don't. Ugh, fuck, I'm so tired. Not really. I'm a little bit tired, but not as much as I probably as I might be, as I could be. By the way, uh, if anyone was confused about why he says the exoticism imposed on themselves, um, the moment um we started viewing ourselves as different, that is the exoticism. As sorry, I should clarify. Absolutely different. Absolutely different is the key word here, not just relatively different, because we are not absolutely different from all these cultures, even if relatively we are. You know, there are differences, of course. No one's denying this. Latour is not denying this. He's not saying all cultures are the same, but there's no absolute difference between us. And by imposing this absolute difference, we ended up creating ourselves as a sort of we made ourselves exotic. And through that, we also projected exoticism onto them because I feel like it's just kind of how it works, you know. Um, but yeah, okay. As a discipline, anthropology has always hesitated on this point. It has only quite recently succeeded in becoming indispensable to political ecology. This is one reason we cannot hold a grudge against common sense for having so badly resisted the exotic babbles that deep ecology sought to foist on it, on the pretext that barbarians respect Mother Earth more than the civilized peoples do. Sorry, guys. I thought my cat knocked a whole bunch of shit over. Okay. Okay, he did actually. I was wrong. I was wrong. I say that and he just did. One second. I will be right. I will be right back. It wasn't that much. It was a few things, but that's really funny that I say that and then that immediately happens. Okay. My cat was trying to, he has those climber's instincts and he was trying to he saw a potential way to get up even higher than he's gotten before, and it was a way to get up in my closet because my closet is a little shelf at the top, and he just fell. He did not make it. He was not able to. He failed. He knocked some stuff off, but it's only a few things. There's nothing that like could break or anything, so it's all good. You okay, buddy? So silly. Um, okay, we're right here. I'm gonna check it out 53, and then I'm actually gonna reread this. I'm dying. Hence the importance for me of the Scola 1994, and especially the Scola 1996. I assume Philip. I'm actually just gonna look it up. Philip de Scola. Yeah, okay. He's a French anthropologist. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. And he's alive. He's still alive. He's actually alive and kicking. So that's always good. Does he only wait? Okay, he has. Wow, he hasn't written that much. Wow. Um, um, Discola has only written, if this is accurate. Oh, you know what it might be? He might have only written this much. This much might only have been translated in English. Um, but in English, there's only two, four, six. There's only 8 books that have been. I assume he's written more, but there's only 8 books that seem to be translated. Is what I'm going to say for right now until I learn more. What a shame! What a shame. The monist anthropologist has to be interested precisely in naturalism above all. The conclusion seems inescapable. Suppress the idea of nature, and the whole philosophical edifice of Western achievements will crumble. But this intellectual cataclysm will not necessarily leave us facing the great void of being which Heidegger ceaselessly denounced. It will only reshape our cosmology and render it less exotic for many cultures who are on the verge of embracing the values of what they believe is modernity. Scola 1996, page 98. It is not certain, however, as we shall see in chapter 5, that anthropology, even if it is comparative, even if it is monist, can measure up to the new political task required by the controversial collection of the aforementioned cultures. Yeah, oh yeah. See in chapter 5, the last chapter of this book. Love when Latour does that to me. He does that so much, and it makes me cry. Okay, so we're gonna read this again. As a discipline, anthropology has always hesitated on this point. It has only quite recently succeeded in becoming indispensable to political ecology. This is one reason we cannot hold a grudge against common sense for having so badly resisted the exotic babbles that geek ecology sought to foist off on it, the pretext that barbarians respect Mother Earth more than the civilized peoples do. From its earliest contacts at the dawn of modern times, anthropology has understood that something was amiss between what it called the savages and nature, that there was in Westerners' nature something that the other peoples found unassimilable. But it has taken a very long time, 3 centuries, let us say, to understand that the nature of the anthropologist was too political for them to grasp the lesson of the noble savages. Back to 259. We are on 54. We shall see in the final section of chapter 5 how to replay the primitive scene of the first contacts by staging a more diplomatic encounter. Oh yeah, just see one of the last sections. Yeah, just see the last basically see the last section of the book. Yeah, you should just do that, guys. You should just do that. Just the last section of the book. It's okay. Just see the last section. No, it's all good. Don't worry. Latour does that a lot. He'll be like, see this last section, or, but I will explain this later. And he's just like, you have to wait. You must wait. You must wait. And I do. I'm very patient with Latour. I love him. He's my guy. Let us quickly go back over the path that made it possible to transform this very particular politics of nature. The first reflex was to view primitives as children of nature, something intermediate between animals, humans, and Westerners. Um, wonder if Latour is gonna um wonder if Latour is gonna note the use of the of because that is often how it is talked about, children of nature. Um, wonder if Latour is ever gonna note the use of that language. He probably will in a certain sense, but probably not really. Um, but Latour is obviously very against all this. This move was not friendly towards animals, savages, or Westerners, the latter never having lived in nature in any form. The second, more agreeable stage entailed a judgment that natives, while as different from nature as whites, nevertheless lived in harmony with nature, respecting and protecting it. This hypothesis did not hold up under the scrutiny of ethnology, prehistory, or ecology. These disciplines rapidly produced multiple examples of pitiless destruction of ecosystems, massive disharmony, countless instances of disequilibrium, even fierce hatred for the environment. In fact, under the name of harmony, the anthropologists gradually noticed that they should not look for particularly sympathetic relationships with nature, but for the presence of a categorization, a classification, an ordering of beings that did not seem to make any sharp distinction between things and people. The difference no longer lay in the savages not treating nature well, but rather in their not treating it at all. The third, more sophisticated stage thus involved natives, rebaptized non-Western peoples in the meantime, as having formed complex cultures whose categories established correspondences between the order of nature and social order. Among these peoples, it was said nothing happens to the order of the world that does not happen to humans and vice versa. There is no classifications of animals or plants that cannot be observed in the social order, and no social classification that cannot be observed in the divisions between natural beings. But the increasingly subtle anthropologists quickly noticed that they were still demonstrating an intolerable ethnocentrism, since they were insisting on the abolition of a difference that was of no interest whatsoever to the people they were studying. By asserting that other cultures brought the natural order and the social order into correspondence, the anthropologists were still taking this division for granted, maintaining that it was in some sense in the nature of things. Now, the other cultures under consideration did not blend the social order and the natural order at all. They were unconcerned by the distinction. To be unaware of a dichotomy is not at all the same thing as combining two sets into one, still less getting beyond this distinction between the two. Cough. Viewed through the lens of anthropology, sorry, I thought I was going to cough. Viewed through the lens of an anthropology that has finally become symmetrical or pluralist, the other cultures appear much more troubling today. They marshal categorizing principles that regroup within a single order in a single collective, let us say, beings that we Westerners insist on keeping separate, or rather, while we think it is indispensable to have two houses to hold our collective, most of the other cultures insist on not having two. From this point on, they can no longer be defined as different cultures having distinct points of view towards a single nature to which we alone would have access. It, of course, becomes impossible to find them as cultures among other cultures against a background of universal nature. There are only nature cultures, or rather collectives that seek to know, as we shall see in Chapter 5, what they may have in common. We see now the reversal of perspective. The savages are not the ones who appear strange because they mix what should in no case be mixed, things and persons. We Westerners are the odd ones who have been living up to now in the strange belief that we had to separate things on the one hand and persons on the other, as two distinct collectives according to two incommensurable forms of collections. Uh, he keeps using terms like this. This is very important. Two distinct collectives. It's not that you can't um uh it's not that you can't have separations necessarily, I think, for Latour. It's less that these separations are uh, they aren't treated as absolute. Um there are there are things that almost certainly will cross those boundaries, and that is like a big thing. Um um I think. And 55. On the entire invention of the other, the double politics of capital S science, see Latour, 1993. Distinction between them and us arises entirely from the absolute difference introduced into facts and values, since they would not differentiate between the other two. That confuses the order of their society with the order of the world, whereas we know how to differentiate between the two orders. In fact, the distinction between us and them is no more than the exportation of the fact-value distinction. Thus, we change from one alterity to another as soon as we change from one conception of science to another. Alterarity. Is it alterarity? Alterity? Alterity.
Alterity.
Alterity. Okay. Alterity. Never seen that word before. Oh, we're on page 45. Yeah. Also important, the 1993 book by Latour that was just mentioned. That's We Have Never Been Modern, and that's actually where he, Pippa, you can tell me because you also would know. Isn't that where nature cultures come from? I'm pretty sure that's where nature cultures come from. Pretty sure that's right. Pretty sure I'm right about that. Pretty sure. Pretty sure I'm not out of my mind. The feeling of strangeness that another culture provokes is of interest only if it leads one to reflect on the strangeness of one's own. Otherwise, it degenerates into exoticism, Orientalism, Occidentalism. Yeah. You look at the you look at the strange worship of other cultures to notice the strange worship in your own cultures. I think is kind of the point. Um, in Factish Gods, um, he talks about there's the beginning of it. There's the beginning of it, and there's these people. They're called the Moduns, and they go to other people's lands. They capture their idols, and then they destroy them in like great ceremonies. Um, and It was by someone from South Korea, I think it was an ambassador from South Korea called Brush, which uh is he's if you don't get it right away, if you look in the footnotes or if you just read it, you probably will eventually because he's just saying the Moduns are the moderns, and Debra Ush is a play on fucking Charles de Brosses, someone who wrote the where he gets his own title from. he wrote on the cult of the fetish gods, which is of course we're on the modern, which is why the book is called On the Modern Cult of the Factish Gods, because it's fucking playing with that, because Latour's kind of turning that kind of anthropology on its head, and that's one of the things he's doing, at least. And so yeah. In order not to fall into a perverse fascination with differences, it is necessary to move quickly to create a common ground that replaces surprise with a deep complicity of solutions. By joining the recent discoveries of comparative anthropology with those of political ecology and the sociology of the sciences, we should be able to get along entirely without the two symmetrical exoticisms. The one that makes Westerners believe that they're detached from nature because they've forgotten the lessons of other cultures and live in a world of pure, efficient, profitable, and objective things. And the one that made other cultures believe that they had lived too long in the fusion between the natural order and the social order. They needed finally, in order to accede to modernity, to take into account the nature of things as they are. The modern world, to which Westerners sometimes regret belonging, even as they insist on bringing other cultures in to join them, does not have the characteristics commonly attributed to it because it lacks nature entirely. Nature plays no role in either world. Among Westerners, because their world is political through and through. Among non-Westerners, because they have never used nature as a place to set aside half of their collective. Whites are neither close to nature because they and they alone finally know how it works thanks to capital S science, nor distant from nature because they have lost the ancestral secret of intimate life with nature. The others are neither close to nature because they have never separated from their collective, nor distant from the nature of things because they've always mistakenly confused it with the requirements of their social order. Neither group is either distant from or close to nature. Nature has played only a provisional role in the political relations of Westerners among themselves and with others. It will play no further role. Thanks to political ecology, it has finally been rethought so it could catch up with militant ecology. Moreover, if we take nature away, we have no more others, no more us. The poison of exoticism suddenly dissipates. Once we have exited from the great political diorama of nature in general, we are left with only the banality of multiple associations of humans and non-humans waiting for their unity to be provided by work carried out by the collective, which has to be specified through the use of the resources, concepts, and institutions of all peoples who may be called upon to live in common on an earth that might become, through a long worth of collection, the same earth for all. Everything now thus depends on the way we are going to characterize this work of collection. One of two things must be true. Either the work has already been carried out, or else it remains to be done. All in parentheses, political epistemology, the nature politic that follows affirm that, under the auspices of nature, this work has been done, for the most part, completed. Political ecology affirms, according to us, that the work is just beginning. To participate in the development of political institutions adapted to the exploration of the common world, in the same earth, anthropology must become experimental. What political choice does it actually face? Must it always retain multiculturalism against a backdrop of unified nature that serves as involuntary philosophy? You will actually check this out. We're 240 probably? Yeah, 240 will probably be close. Experimental anthropology. The capacity of anthropologists to encounter other cultures used to depend on the certainty provided by mononaturalism. The anthropology I call experimental establishes new contact with other cultures while rejecting both mononaturalism and multiculturalism. See also diplomacy. Okay, so it's the rejection of those two things. 47? Yeah. Since the 17th century, it has been common to distinguish between what things are in themselves independently of our knowledge of them, independently of the way they are experienced by consciousness, and what are called secondary qualities. When we speak of atoms, particles, photons, or genes, we are designating primary qualities. When we speak of colors, odors, or lights, we are designating secondary qualities. Nothing is more innocuous than this distinction at first glance. Yet we need only modify it very slightly to bring fully to light the political arrangement that it surreptitiously authorizes. Primary qualities, in fact, make up the common world that we all share. We are all, we'd like to say, equally made up of genes and neurons, proteins and hormones, in a universe of atoms, void, and energy. On the other hand, the secondary qualities divide us because they refer to the specifics of our psyche, our language, our cultures, and our paradigms. As a result, we define politics, as I have done, not as a conquest of power in the side of the cave alone, but as the progressive composition of a common world to share. We notice the division between primary and secondary qualities has already done the bulk of the political work. When we enter a universe whose furnishings have been already defined, we know from the outset what we all have in common, what keeps us together. There remains what divides us, the secondary qualities. But this is not an essential division, because their inaccessible essences are located elsewhere in the form of primary qualities that are moreover invisible. 260. Here I am politicizing Whitehead's critique of the distinction between primary and secondary qualities, as well as the strangeness of the role given to the human mind. The theory of psychic additions would treat the greenness of a blade of grass as a psychic addition furnished by the perceiving mind, would leave to nature merely the molecules in the radiant energy which influence the mind towards the perception. The same critique, based on Whitehead and James, the division between primary and secondary attributes, is also found in Nice, 1988, with a very different solution. Nice seems interesting. Nice has come up a lot in here, I think. We're still on 47, great. Yeah, we are still. Now we can see that if the anthropology of earlier times paid so much attention to the multiplicity of cultures, it is because it took universal nature as a given. If it could collect so many diversities, it is because anthropology could grab hold of them by getting them to detach themselves from a common backdrop that had been unified in advance. There are thus two equally unstable solutions to this problem of unity: mononaturalism and multiculturalism. Mononaturalism is not at all self-evident. It is simply one of the possible solutions to an aborted experiment in constructing a common world, one nature, a multiplicity of cultures. Unity in the hands of the exact scientists, multiplicity in the hands of the human scientists. Multiculturalism, if it is to be more than a boogeyman conjured up to frighten small children, offers a different but equally premature solution to the exploration of the common world. Not only are cultures diverse, but all can make equal claims to define reality in their own terms. They no longer stand out against a backdrop of unified nature. Each is incommensurable with the others. There is no longer any common world at all. On the one hand, an invisible world, but one that is visible to the eyes of scientists whose work remains hidden. On the other hand, a visible and perceptible world, but one that is inessential because it has been emptied of its essences. On the one hand, a world without value, since it corresponds to nothing experienced, but a world that alone is essential because it has to do with the real nature of phenomena. On the other hand, a world of values, but a world which is also worthless because it has access to no durable reality, even though it is the only world we experience subjectively. The solution of mononaturalism stabilizes nature at the risk of emptying the notion of culture of all substance and reducing it to mere representations. The solution of multiculturalism stabilizes the notion of culture at the risk of endangering the universality of nature and reducing it to an illusion. and it is this cockeyed arrangement that passes for good sense. To get the experimentation with the common world, which has been prematurely shut down by these two calamitous solutions, started up again, we shall have to avoid both the notion of culture and the notion of nature. This is what makes political ecology's use of the finding of anthropology so delicate, and may explain why it has refrained up to now from using them more fully. A comparison will enable us to provide a better understanding of the instability into which we must not be afraid to enter in order to restore full meaning to what could be called politics without nature. Before feminism, the word man had the character of an unmarked category, while woman was marked. By saying man, one designated the totality of thinking beings without even thinking about it. By saying woman, one marked the female as apart from thinking beings. No Westerner today would take the word man to be unmarked. Male slash female, man slash woman, he slash she, these terms have certainly taken the place of what was formerly self-evident. The two labels are both marked, coded, embodied. Neither can claim any longer to designate effortlessly and incontestably the universal on the basis of which the other remained an other eternally apart. Thanks to the immense work of the feminists, we now have access to conceptual institutions that allow us to mark the difference not between man and woman, but between, on the one hand, the former pair made up of man and an unmarked category, and woman, a single marked category, and on the other hand, the new and infinitely more problematic pair made up of the two equally marked categories of man and woman. We are on to 60 and 57. See, this is enormous work of analytic work summed up in Fox Keller, 1986, on the link between feminist questions and science studies. See also Scheinbinger, Schiebinger, actually. Yeah, that's probably more right, because it's she, it's Veen and Vine. 49. We can foresee without difficulty that the same thing will soon hold true for the categories of nature and culture. For the moment, nature still has the resonance that man had 20 or 40 years ago as the unchallengeable, blinding, universal category against the backdrop of which culture stands out clearly and distinctly, eternally particular. Nature is thus an unmarked category, while culture is marked. Now, however, through a movement just as vast in scope, political ecology proposes to do for nature what feminism undertook to do and is still undertaking to do for man. Wipe out the ancient self-evidence with which it was taken a bit too hastily, as if it were all there is. And then the whole interest of Donna Haraway's work stems from the fact that she has brought together two projects, that of feminism and that of political ecology. Not in the simple form Carolyn Merchant gave them, 1980-1992, but by taking as the central point of her investigation in each case the question of science and its uncertainties. See in particular 1989, Haraway 1989, and Haraway 1991. For a fascinating illustration of the combined debates of feminism, science studies, and sociobiology, see the arguments brought together in Strum and Fettigan, 2000. All these seem so fucking interesting. For all of you, and also notice their recency. Latour is all this stuff is a lot of the stuff is within like years of him publishing this book. A decade, 2 decades, 3 decades maybe, and most of it is within that time frame. Most of it is pretty recent. Most of it is still kind of new, and his field is also quite small, and so like this is amazing. The stuff he brings together is amazing, and it makes complete sense. That was really good. A lot of the citations were really good as well. I All of that was I think the best way I can explain this entire section was and Pippa, I don't know if you would if you agree with me or not, that all this was about the Great Divide and how to overcome it. Um and how we need to overcome it. Not necessarily how to, but how we need to overcome it and explaining why we need to overcome it. And that seems to be what it was. And if I had to sum it up, that's kind of how I would sum it up. He is trying to overcome the Great Divide once again, but well, a Great Divide once again. Um, no, actually, no. The Great Divide. He is trying to overcome the Great Divide because he's trying to get back to nature cultures as he talked about them already. He's trying to talk about this as this, in a slightly different way, but in a bit of a different way. But it is what he's trying to do because by doing this, we do get rid of the otherness of our own culture and the otherness of other cultures too. And so it is kind of the great divide again because nature versus culture is for Latour at least. I guess people are free to disagree, but I agree with Latour. Is what created the Great Divide in the first place. There's nature and there are cultures, and yeah, yeah. Uh, oh, that was really good. We only have 3 pages left, 4 pages left of this chapter, and then we're done. That was really good. This has been really good. This has been really good. What successor for the bicameral collective? With this first chapter, we have covered both the easiest and the most difficult ground. The easiest because it was still only a matter of clearing away false problems before addressing the truly arduous questions of the new public institutions to be built. Yes, yes, it is literally perfect. It is literally perfect. It is the fucking perfect thing. Um, I need to check out. I'm going to start um going through all the sources and just downloading them and just downloading them. Um, and I'm also going to associate them uh with when they are in a specific section. I'm going to cite them within that specific section and try to cite them with their context. It's going to be like a lot of work, like genuinely a lot of work, but I want to do it because all this stuff is amazing, especially within the context the tour is um well, not within the context, within the content with which the tour is placing it. It is it's really good. It's all really good. And sorry. But to continue, I'm gonna stop fangirling for a second and I'm going to continue. What successor for the bicameral collective? This first chapter, we have covered both the easiest and most difficult ground. The easiest because it was still only a matter of clearing away false problems before addressing the arduous questions of the new public institutions to be built. The most difficult because we now have to know what concerns these new institutions have to address. If we have made a forced march across landscapes that merited a more leisurely pace, at least we have reached our base camps. Our base camp. The combined findings of science studies, political ecology, social sciences, and comparative anthropology we have sketched out in turn, and each of which, as I am well aware, would have warranted a much more extensive treatment, come together to raise one single question. What collective can we convoke now that we no longer have two houses? only one of which acknowledged its political character. What new constitution can replace the old one? As for the question, must we have a politics that is oriented toward humans, or one that also takes nature into account? We now know that this is a false dichotomy, since at least in the Western version of public life, the laws of nature and those of humans have always coexisted, each under threat from the other. We know that today, for the first time, there's a credible alternative to this bicameral politics, as it is implausible to assimilate the work of the sciences to capital S science, as it is to reduce politics as the progressive composition of a common world, the cave politics of power and interests. Contrary to the crisis of horror that the defenders of the old constitutions continue to admit, though with less and less effect, it is perfectly possible to speak of external reality without immediately confusing it with its hasty unification by a power that dares not bear that name and still displays itself under the less and less protective cover of the epistemology police. Thus, for the first time, we can remove the parentheses from the particular form of political philosophy born in the age of the cave and imagine its successor by speaking openly of political epistemology, provided that we bring the sciences, and not capital S science, together with the question of the collective, and not the social world understood as a prism. Like all the results that we shall try to obtain, this one is extravagant only in appearance. Only its banality makes it difficult. More precisely, we have so little experience in not dramatizing the question of nature, not turning it into a gigantomachy, that we have trouble recognizing how simple it is to gain access to a not yet gathered multiplicity. The new distinction towards which we are being led, as we see it, by political ecology, no longer divides nature from society, ecology from politics. Instead, it separates two operations that we are going to learn to characterize in Chapter 3. One bears upon the multiplication of entities, and the other on their composition, their arrangement. In other words, as we can see more clearly now, non-humans are no longer objects at all, and no longer social constructions either. Objects are not innocent inhabitants of the world. The object was the non-human plus the polemic of nature imparting a lesson to the politics of subjects. Once freed from this polemic, from this bifurcation of nature, non-humans are going to occupy an entirely different position. Here, I am borrowing Whitehead's striking expression of the bifurcation of nature. What I am essentially protesting against is the bifurcation of nature into two systems of reality, which, insofar as they are real in different senses. One reality would be the entities such as electrons, which are the study of speculative physics. This would be the reality which is there for knowledge, although in this theory it is never known. For what is known is the other sort of reality, which is the byplay of the mind. Thus there would be two natures, one that is the conjecture, and the other is the dream. Whitehead, 1920, page 30. Whitehead nevertheless carefully maintains the notion of nature, which, for reasons of political philosophy that do not concern him, I prefer not to retain. But see Isabel Stenger's 2002. And this is probably Isabel Stenger's on Whitehead, I assume. Yeah, I assume that's what it is. I'm going to assume that's what it is. Isabel Stengers wrote a whole thing on Whitehead, apparently, and it's probably really interesting. 51, I think. Not 51. Oh, yes, 51. We were at the end of the page, so it is actually 51. All the canonical big problems of epistemology will appear henceforth only as mere martial arts demonstrations. There's a big difference between the isolated, non-human tree that falls in the forest and the object tree that falls in the forest to smash in the head of the idealist confronting the realist in a pub across from King's College. What can we say about the former? That it falls and falls by itself. Nothing more, nothing less. It is the second that responds polemically to a conflict of power over the respective rights of nature and politics. Only the object finds itself engaged in the conflict of loyalty between the new pope and the new emperor, not the non-human. Non-humans diverge much better than to play indefinitely the rather unworthy, somewhat vulgar role of object on the great stage of nature. Gravity, for example, sublime gravity, an admiral rhizome that transformed Europe and all heavy bodies starting in 1650, deserves much better than to serve as an irrefutable objection to the social constructivist who is supposed to claim he can jump out of the proverbial 15th-story window without getting hurt because he believes, or so his adversaries believe, in relativism. When will we grow up and stop riding ourselves with such bugaboos? When will we finally be able to secularize non-humans by ceasing to objectify them? When will we be able not to reduce matters of concern to matters of fact? When will we manage, at least at last, to be faithful to the promises of empiricism? By freeing non-humans from the polemic of nature, we do not claim to be leaving them to themselves, unattainable, impregnable, unqualifiable, as if they occupy the quite unenviable position of things in themselves. If we have to free them, we have to do so completely, and in particular from the blockade to which Kantianism sought to condemn them by depriving them of any possible relations with human assemblies. The social world is no more made up of subjects than nature is made up of objects. And thanks to political ecology, we can distinguish objects from non-humans. We're going to be able, also thanks to political ecology, to distinguish humans from subjects. The subject was the human caught up in the polemic of nature and courageously resisting objectification by science, capital S science. Subjects were supposed either to free themselves from nature in order to exercise their freedom, or else to put their freedom in chains in order to reduce themselves finally to objects of nature. And then this is going to be the last footnote, as we saw. It is to this pathetic choice that Luc Ferry and those who engage in polemics against him would like to reduce us. See, on the contrary, the research that has been very important to me, conducted by Cassens in 1996 on the subjectivities of hospitals, and by Emile Gomart, 1992 and 2002, on subjects' experimentations with drugs. But humans no longer have to make this choice that is imposed upon subjects. Once freed of what has been a veritable Cold War, humans are going to take on a very different aspect, and instead of existing by themselves, they're going to be able to unroll the long chain of non-humans, without which freedom would be out of the question. As for the scientific disciplines, once they have been made visible, present, active, and agitated, while ceasing to be threatened, they're going to be able to deploy the formidable potential of the pluriverse that they had the opportunity to develop up to now. They have been constantly crushed under the obligation to produce objects of nature as rapidly as possible, without avoiding social constructions in order to return to society as quickly as possible, perform it by means of unchallengeable reason. By loosening the mortal grips of epistemology and sociology, political ecology allows the scientific disciplines, freed of their task of, in parentheses, political epistemology, to multiply the enclosures, the arenas, the laboratories, by means of which humans and non-humans, both newly liberated, associate. Capital S science is dead. Long live research, and long live the sciences. Something important. Something he talks about in his earlier work. And is kind of talked about here now. If Latour can be said to hate science, it is because he instead loves research. This is one of the things he makes, one of the plays he makes. He says, I think in Science in Action, if it can be said that I don't like science, that I dislike science, It is because I instead love research, and that's kind of one of the new plays he's going towards. Everything remains to be done, but at least we have emerged from the cave era. Public speech no longer lives under the permanent threat of salvation from on high that would invoke laws not made by human hands to short-circuit the procedures that allow us to define the common world. Surprise! When we abandon the ancient figure of reason, we are not abandoning either external reality or the sciences or even the future of reason. The old opposition between scientists and politicians, between Socrates and Callias, between reason and power, yields from now on to a different and more fruitful opposition between the perennial quarrel opposing epistemologists to sophists, on the one hand, and the issue of the collective, on the other hand. The old constitution, intended to keep the prisoners of the cave in captivity, has had ample time to roll out its effects. It is time now to make an effort to imagine a political philosophy for assemblages of humans and non-humans. As we shall see in the following chapter, since Westerners have always governed under cover of nature, the two-house collective, we may as well do it right this time, explicitly in the full light of day, and according to due process. And we have the questions. We have the questions now. Usually Latour's first chapters are always dedicated to establishing what questions he intends to go about. His first chapters usually, most oftentimes, unless he has a lengthy introduction, serve as the explaining of what he intends on doing in his books. This is what he's doing. He's setting out his questions. He's explaining some, but he's going to leave most of it to later. Most of the work that he is going to do is going to be done later. And he has asked all the questions now. He has asked all the questions he wanted, which is, to put it kind of simply, how we go about moving from the two-house system to a new system of assembling the collective, which is faithful to both humans and non-humans. And yeah, I love this book already. This book is going to be worth it. It's still a lot. Where if I stream every day reading at least a section of this, like 10 pages of it, we should be able to finish it towards like the end of this month. But yeah, it will have taken like a month for us to read this. Going 10 pages a day, going slowly. I don't. The reason I'm going to say something before I in stream. The reason why I'm not explaining or trying to explain as much as I should is mainly because the purpose of this is kind of just to read it. This is my first time reading it. I have never read this before. I haven't touched this before, besides looking at the contents page on what it's about, and like looking at the description and what's it about. And like besides that, I haven't touched this book, and so it's kind of just me reading it, and I like that. I like that it's kind of just me reading it. I provide some explanation, but I think Latour oftentimes speaks for himself. You'll notice the times I like to explain are the connections between his other work that we're not reading currently, that we're not going through right now, and that I'm not sure if we will go through. I don't know if I have the expertise. Like, I know a lot about Latour, but I only really know about Latour. Like I said, I don't know about his sources. A lot of the people he cites, a lot of this stuff. and I don't know if I could do a good enough job of explaining it. I could explain it, but it wouldn't be something that you could could get. Like it isn't something you couldn't get by simply reading the book yourself. And so I'm trying to make these kind of just readings, where I insert some stuff, I read the footnotes, I show some interest, but I kind of like that they're kind of just readings. And if people have questions, I'll answer them. Of course I'll answer them. Um, but besides that, I think Latour speaks for himself. Latour is clear, and unless people have questions, I don't like saying stuff because I think he makes his points, and you're going to be confused. And um, I'm confused. I'm confused. And I sit with that confusion, and I let myself be confused, and I read. And oftentimes I'm confused on things until the very end almost of the book, and then it all comes together, and it all makes complete sense, and I'm like, it makes sense now. Um, and so yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like me reading, donate. I'm not just going to be doing readings. I'm right now working on a video essay. Explaining some stuff. It should hopefully come out within the next week. No promises, but it should hopefully come out within the next week, if not the next few days. Um, if I can, it depends on how much I get work I have, like work like IRL life stuff, and not just YouTube stuff. Because I need to do research for this, which if I don't work tomorrow, if they don't call me in tomorrow, I will be doing tomorrow. I'll be doing the research for him tomorrow. So, you guys enjoyed this. A few bucks always helps. You don't have to do anything crazy. Um, but otherwise, I'm gonna continue doing this. Um, if I wasn't doing this on YouTube, I would be doing this in a Discord server with a few people. And so now, at least, people have something to other people have a resource to go to. They have a reading, and you know, it it might be a might not be explaining everything or even most things, but I think the reading itself makes things more accessible. And like I said, I also, there's some stuff I can't explain. Factish gods, I can explain decently. You asked me something about factish gods, I can explain it decently because I kind of went over a little bit. But I'm not going to pretend I know things I don't, because I don't. I'm not going to. I try to explain when I know how to explain things instead of just giving you kind of like a bullshit explanation. Is what I try, because I worry about that. I don't want to confuse anyone about this stuff when I actually don't know about it. And so my knowledge is very limited right now, and almost exclusively to Latour. So hopefully I'll know more in the future. I'm gonna try reading some books, but have a good night, everyone. I'm gonna be making dinner. I have a Discord. If you have any questions about politics of nature or anything else by Latour, if you're reading something else by Latour and you have any questions, ask me, and I'll do my best to answer. Even if it's a book I haven't read, just give me what section you're confused about, and I might actually be able to figure it out myself and also learn something new about Latour. I would take the time to read a section that you like the section of a book that you're confused about, and see if I can make some sense of it, from my knowledge, because Latour is generally kind of progressing on what he knows, on what he's already done. And so yeah, I have a Discord server. It's linked on my YouTube profile. So I hope the link is still working. Hope the link still works. Um, I assume it does. I set it to never expire, so it shouldn't be, but I'll probably check that every now and again. Um, but yeah, I'll stop rambling now, and I'll let you guys get going. I hope everyone enjoyed this. I definitely did. I definitely did. Bye, everyone.